What's up, everybody? You're very welcome along to this last Transfer Talk podcast of this summer transfer window. I'm joined by Christian and I'm joined by Chris to have a look over the business not only done by Liverpool but by the Premier League clubs in general. I want to come to you guys first for just before we look through the actual list, just a brief overview of how you're feeling about Liverpool's business. So, Chris, I'll come to you first, mate. Happy? Sad? Frustrated? How are you feeling?
I'm more than happy. I know there's a lot of people who have gone into today believing that we needed to strike some kind of deal for a number 10 and another centre half, and I wasn't really on that page with whoever feels that way. To be honest, I went into pretty much this last week really feeling like the business that we've done sets us up brilliantly. We were already at a really good starting point before the window opened. In terms of the players we already had, it just needed beefing up a bit. Some of the what you would call the deadwood going out. I think we've done that. We're a hell of a lot stronger than we were last season, and we were very strong last season. I would say you rate a window based on, you can look at it in terms of like individual players, but it's a squad game, and is this squad as strong as we've seen for a good while? I can't remember a strong this squad at Liverpool for over 20 years now. So it's a successful window. I'm really happy about it, and it's got me sort of champing at the bit for this new season. I really can't wait to see him fit and firing and getting going, and hopefully putting Man City to the sword for the title. I think we're well in that race.
Well, we haven't got long left to wait, guys, before the Premier League season kicks off. It kicks off tomorrow with Manchester United against Leicester, but for us, obviously, it's all about Sunday. Christian, before we get stuck into the exact details of what Liverpool have done, how are you feeling about this window, buddy? And did you enjoy your holiday? Because I haven't spoke to you in a while.
Yeah, holiday was great, but I will not bore the listeners about what I've done in the holidays. Let's just say I'm being in a completely different part of the world. But I've been closely monitoring what Liverpool been doing, and I couldn't be happier. I'd say this is I can remember two windows that has been equally as good. It was Gerard Houlier's first window when he brought in Hyppian, Hamann, and Henshaw and those kind of players, and it was when Dalglish brought in Barnes, Beardsley, Aldrich. Ray Houghton actually was kind of part of that window too. So it's up there with those two, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, I think the club have done tremendous. And you know what, gents? We'll get stuck straight into the list now. So we'll start off with the incomings, and obviously we had Naby Keita. That was a deal done last year, but it goes down as this year's transfer because he joined us from Leipzig for, I'm going by the list here off Sky Sports News, so £52.75 million. Fabinho then joined from Monaco, 43.7 million. Sheridan Shaqiri, which for me is one of the bargains of the summer, at 13.5 million. And then the one that excites me the most, if I'm being honest here, gents, Alisson Becker for £67 million from Roma. And of course, we can't forget about Isaac Christie-Davis from Chelsea on a free. So Chris, coming back to you, buddy. Of the four main transfers there we've gone through, so Keita, Fabinho, Shaqiri and Becker. I say Becker because I like saying Becker. I know his name's Alisson, but Becker just sounds, I don't know, just sounds better. Sounds less feminine maybe. So Chris, not that there's anything wrong by the way with sounding feminine, but you know where I'm coming from. I like to mix things up. So Chris, for you, which one excites you the most of those four transfers?
You probably won't be surprised to know that the one that excites me the most is probably the one that excites everybody else the least, because I'm like that, aren't I? I kind of go against the grain. It's Shaqiri. Watching the pre-season games, and I know everybody will say, yeah, it's just pre-season, but it's the same pre-season game for all of the other players in the squad. He's the one who has produced the more exciting performances for me. In terms of a player doing things that, really that other players don't seem to be doing in the squad. The little reverse passes, the little dink balls over the top. And then you add into that his work rate seems to be in line with everybody else. And he's got such a clever footballing brain. you've seen him linking up with numerous players. I mean, I'm a big fan of Sturridge. I think he's a very clever forward, and you can see when both of them are on the pitch that he links up with him well. Yeah, I'm expecting big things from him. It's just good to see a really good quality player finally with quality players around him going into the peak of his career. I'm expecting him to do a lot better than a lot of people give him credit for, to be honest. Yeah, so I would say he's the one who potentially excites me the most. But in terms of what I feel we really needed, I think off the back of the Champions League final and off the back of some early errors in pre-season, I think Alisson Becker's probably the most welcome signing for me. I think we needed that. A new goalkeeper who really doesn't split opinion. He's not divisive whatsoever. Everybody's on board with that one, and I think that's something we really needed. So he's probably the most welcome rather than the one who's going to excite me the most.
Christian, just coming back to Shaqiri there for a minute, where do you envisage Jurgen Klopp using Shaqiri mostly?
I think the question is rather where won't Klopp use him? I think Klopp wants Shaqiri to be on the pitch as much as he can, but he might not be a constant starter. But I think he perhaps will be the first player we will substitute for many players because he's very diverse. And I agree with Chris. He has really impressed. And I think Shaqiri also knows he's been part of two big clubs before with Inter and Bayern Munich, and he didn't really make their teams. So I think he feels it's now or never. He's been part of a smaller team like Stoke, and perhaps the player weren't at his level, so they didn't understand him. And now he gets player like Sturridge, which I also think has been looking absolutely fantastic preseason.
Yes.
But he also will be able to play with Salah, Firmino, and these kind of players. And then all of a sudden we will see what quality kind of player Shaqiri actually is. So I think the surroundings at this stage of his career, and I think it's basically the same with Sturridge. Sturridge was sitting in a sick bed watching us play Champions League final last year. When he came back, he went straight to Klopp's office and said, please give me another chance. So I think the players are very hungry to be part of this. So I think they are eager to learn. And I think Klopp is in a very good position to develop the players at the moment, because it's hugely... It has a lot of competition and so much quality all around. And I think Shaqiri will flourish in this environment.
And just coming back to which player excites you the most of the ones that came in this window, who was the one for you that got you up off your feet, standing in your sitting room clapping like me?
I was overwhelmed with actually both that we got Keita and Fabinho. I thought, wow, the competition in midfield will be amazing. But Alisson Becker, of course, it's the first time since Ray Clemens we have one of the 5 best goalkeepers in the world, I think, and he really is. It's everything about him is just so. He has this height, and he looks so big, and he works very calm and with so much authority, and I can't see that he has any faults really. He just needs to adapt to Premier League, because it's much tougher on goalkeepers than they were in Italy. So it's the adaptation that he needs to focus on.
Really strange, Christian, isn't it, that we can already say formerly the world's most expensive goalkeeper, Alisson Becker, because that's gone already, which is great. I think it's great news. It's good weight off his shoulders.
Yeah, it truly is. Chelsea put themselves in a very strange position, and they invested double the money that they got for Courtois for a slightly worse goalkeeper. So it's not amazing business done by them, to say the least.
Oh, we'll get on to Chelsea later, but Chris, one thing I think we've seen since Jurgen Klopp has arrived at Liverpool, pretty much every signing he's made, obviously goalkeepers aside, are players that can play in numerous positions, and Klopp does seem to like that trait in a footballer.
Well, they are, and I'm not mentioning this again to blow my own trumpet or anything, but I said when we signed Shaqiri, I expect him to take up that sort of attacking midfield role rather than a place out on the wing just solely as Salah's backup should Salah not be available or need subbing off. And I took a lot of stick for it. Where we've seen him play in pre-season, it's quite clear that Klopp has bought him for a set of skills that he's looking to use, not just in one position, but in several. And he does that with all of his players, doesn't he? I don't think many players have taken up the exact role that they had at the previous club. And another thing on the signings that Klopp's made, apart from one or two, most of them are players. They're not, or he goes after the player that he wants. So it's not a case of reacting to whether a player is available. So obviously we're going to possibly discuss Everton's business, and everybody's going to talk about how well they've done this window. They've pretty much just signed who is available. They've not, the player's asked to leave, is on the market, they've gone and signed him. They've not gone and got Naby Keita from the cold dead fingers of Leipzig, or, rubbed up Roma the wrong way a second time for one of their prized assets. He's gone out and they've aggressively gone after the player that Klopp wants. He's got a very finite vision of what he wants in a player, what he wants in the team as a whole, and he's putting that together. And I wouldn't suggest that we're the finished article. I wouldn't suggest that we're exactly where he wants to be right now. It's not a one-window process or a two-window process. It takes time. But I don't think we're far off. The only thing that suggests to me that we're not all the way there is that we did try to sign Fekir. That didn't happen. What we haven't done is gone and signed an available Bernard, who I think, if given the choice between Everton and Liverpool, would have rightly chose Liverpool. So it's not that we're just after putting bodies in place. We're after putting very certain bodies in place. And you look at the business overall there, we had to show attention to certain areas of the team, not just the squad, but also the starting 11, things that where we saw weaknesses. On the whole, all of us, where we saw weaknesses last season, we seem to have paid them specific attention in this window. We've only lost one player. How many did you say have gone out the door again, Christian?
It could be 18.
18 with Ings.
So 18 with Ings. So, Ings, he's a good player and everything, but he was never making a difference, was he? So there's only really Emre Can out of those 18 players who have left who made a difference to the first team last season. And he's been amply replaced in Keita or Fabinho, whichever one you want to look at. I mean, Can pretty much played the number 6 role more often than not. So chances are you're looking at Fabinho there, aren't you, as the replacement? And Keita is the bonus there in midfield. So it really is a good window. We've strengthened massively, and it's all on Klopp, isn't it? His pulling power, how aggressive he's been, and wanting the certain players to strengthen certain areas. And obviously the team behind him, led by Edwards, who have made this happen. It's such a good window, and we're definitely shopping at the top table now, aren't we, as well, which is really good to see.
I have to take my hat off and tip it to Jurgen Klopp, Michael Edwards and the team. They've done a tremendous job in this window, as Chris has said. They've gone about the business strategically, got the players they wanted, strengthened where we need strengthening. But Christian, is there a little tinge of disappointment perhaps that we didn't get that Fekir in? We can talk about centre-backs, but we were never really, really strongly linked to a centre-back as much as we were Nabil Fekir. I mean, the dude was in a Liverpool kit, for God's sake.
Well, I think I completely agree with everything Chris says. It's our club. Is in such a healthy state in how we conduct our business now, and we can also talk about how with Emre Can going out and 4 players coming in, that will make a difference. It's also that Oxlade-Chamberlain got injured, but we got 3 players back from injuries, or 2 players back from injuries, and Sturridge back like he used to look. With Klein coming back and Lallana coming back, it means that we actually have 6 more players when you look at the total numbers that are competing that are competing for the 11 starting positions. So we are in a fierce competition this year.
And not to mention Jones and Camacho, who look promising as well.
Yeah, the youngsters look good, and that Phillips guy, the center back, he looked really, really good, even though he were sleeping a little bit there when they scored the last goal, but Torino. So everything is in a very healthy state. Fekir was probably it was probably the dream from us fans that it was going to happen, but after that medical, it was probably not even close. It was too big of a risk to go for Fekir. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come down that way like it did.
Yeah, it's a damn shame for the player, if I'm being honest. I often think about the player in these situations, and he has to go back to Lyon now, Chris, after being pictured in a Liverpool shirt, pushing for the deal, did his interview with the club for the Welcome to Liverpool video. It has to be tough on him. I suppose it will make it a little bit easier that Lyon is his hometown club. He's a Lyon boy, and he'll probably go back in there as the club captain and as a World Cup winner, we have to say as well.
Well, if the scenario is that we end up going back in for him at a later date, or he secures a move to another club, or even just stays put, you got to look how everybody got behind Coutinho. When Coutinho didn't leave last summer, and stayed and performed. I think as long as you stay and perform, and I've got no reason, there's no reason to believe why he won't just pick up where he left off last season, which was performing very well for Lyon. The fans will be with him. The club president's clearly on side with him. And I've not really heard much from his manager, but you would imagine his manager's happy to have him in the side. But there's still scope for him to leave, yeah. He could go anywhere else if he wants to, but I think the talk is that he's going to sign a new deal. And I think this is where it may scupper our chances of getting back in for him, because if he signs a new deal, they're going to want more money for him. And if they want more money for him, and we weren't willing to pay what we originally agreed, which I believe was 46 million, I can't see it happening. So we would be moving on to another target if we need it. And I think if we needed another target that badly, someone other than Fekir, I think we would have seen it happen.
I have a little take on that. I think actually we got Shaqiri just after Fekir, the medical of Fekir failed, right? So I think Shaqiri was the plan B.
I think we were linked with him before the Fekir deal was struck there, weren't we?
But I'm just saying we completed the deal with Shaqiri after Fekir broke down. So I think that was the plan B.
I think it's half and half, isn't it? I think it was a case we were probably going to sign both. I think Shaqiri was very much a bonus signing, given the fee involved, 13 million. But I think the fact that there were issues surrounding Fekir's medical, and we'd brought in Shaqiri, I think it just kind of meant we weren't at panic stations. I think Klopp was quite comfortable just using Shaqiri instead. So, yeah, I think it's sort of halfway between the two posts there. So, yeah, there's definitely something in that. I don't think, though, that Shaqiri was outright a alternative, because I know we were linked with him perhaps before the deal with Fekir for Fekir was struck. But I don't think it's a great miss. I mean, I can remember saying about Man City's business earlier in the window. They signed Mahrez. I'm like, well, they can't play Mahrez as well as the starting 11 that they played last season. You can only play 11 players. So is he? Yeah, it improves options, but it doesn't. I don't think it really adds many points over a season. So I look at the business we've done without Fekir. We've definitely added points, haven't we? Because, you know, if you take our front three as a set front three, you know, that was never going to budge. And now you look at our midfield, people say, yeah, well, Fekir would have played in there. We've seen Shaqiri can play in there. We know Henderson can play in there. We know Gini. We've even seen Gini in the last couple of preseason games adopt a more attacking role when Fabinho's on the pitch. So, you know, these are players who will still get numbers. They will still produce. We've got Lallana just come out. We've just mentioned all these names. You know, we're not, it's not a significant miss. And it's not something that I think needed addressing as a need. It was more just sort of like a cherry on the cake signing, and it didn't come off.
We have to also say here, Chris, though, that we now have a settled Virgil van Dijk who's after getting 6 months under his belt as well.
Well, there's that as well, and a very confident, on top of the world Lovren to come into this season as well. Not one who there was question marks over. You've just mentioned Phillips there, so even if we've got to go all the way back to using Phillips, he's shown that he can play in there alongside Van Dijk. But people seem to forget that before Van Dijk came in, because I know people do believe that we should have gone and signed a centre-back. Before Van Dijk came in, we were looking quite settled at centre-half with Klavan and Lovren for a short while. So we're not void of options. And if you look at the teams around us, nobody's really got a wealth of centre-half, of options at centre-half. They've perhaps got one really good centre-half, a very good one next to them, and then after that, there's not a whole lot. And I think we look quite healthy there in comparison.
Don't say that around Jose, Chris. You're not allowed to talk about centre-backs around Mr. Mourinho.
He's a bear with a sore head, isn't he? It's quite funny.
But there are actually rumours that we have pre-signed Tarkovsky, that he will join next year, and Liverpool and Burnley has conducted the business now already. So he will arrive to the 2019-2020 season.
I've heard that, yeah. Yeah, and he's a very good player, isn't he? And,
yeah. It's really smart business again.
It is, yeah. And I mean, if it's obviously true, but I'd like to believe that it's true, because you're not going to get many more seasons out of Klavan, and I think there's perhaps going to come a point where the unreliability of Matip kind of pushes him out. So yeah, I think things are good right now. Can they be better? Things can always be better. You know, we can pine for other players and in other positions all we want, but right now this squad it's solid. It's used to each other. It's getting some continuity and some consistency together, and I'm perfectly happy with it as it is right now. Yeah, been a really good summer.
Christian, we spoke about players coming in, and we'll have a little chat about players leaving, but Chris touched on something there that probably we need to address. We brought in some players, yes, that's great, but this summer has also seen Phillips and Jones really step up in pre-season, and I think cemented their place in and around that first team squad.
Yeah, Camacho as well, I think. You could see that Liverpool is working more as a team within the club. We have moved the academy much closer to the first team, and the players coming up, they already are in the same. They have been schooled in the same way as the first team. They understand the pressing game. They understand how we defend. They understand how diverse we can be. So the preparation of the young players are much better nowadays than it used to be. So even though you're 17 or 18, it like Salah and Mane and these kind of players, they don't even seem to notice that there is this young 17 or 18-year-old centre-back playing for the first time. They just play the same. And a young player like Phillips, everybody uses him, that he's been a part of the team for as long as anybody could remember, like 10 years or something. So everybody so easily adapts. And when I see a player like Curtis Jones, and I see the potential that he has, it's so good because it's so much money being saved for the club in the future when you get these talents. And when a player come up and he shines in this environment where there are some of the best players in the world around him, like Keita or Salah or Mane or Van Dijk or whomever, and you notice this guy, then you see on such a high level he already is, and that's great news for Liverpool. That the whole sort of orchestra is playing the same symphony. And also when you look at all these players going out on loan, like Iaria and Harry Wilson, Ryan Kent, Woodburn, it's so much talent that will in the future also be available. So yeah, we are at a very, very healthy state. And then I didn't mention that Alan guy who's been fighting with his visa for forever.
He's firstly on at Frankfurt, isn't it? He's back out on loan at Frankfurt. So I mean, the club seem to be really hanging on to him, don't they? They must rate him quite highly. Although when you see, sort of reports from his previous loans, he doesn't seem to have been tearing it up or anything. But there's a conversation, I think, around some of the players that's still at the club that we expected to be gone now. I'm assuming that, I know obviously the window changed in terms of when it ended, but players can still be sold, can't they? And can still go out on loan. So obviously we've still got Origi knocking around, haven't we? Markovic, Grujic. So I'm wondering so I can see a few more on the outs list over the next few weeks. So I think, but again, I don't see what I think we're all looking at here is, can anybody major, go out with the rest? And you just can't see it, can you? Everybody seems to be sort of happy and raring to go, which is a rare thing. I think in seasons gone by, if we were in this scenario, we'd all be biting our nails till the very last moment any player could possibly leave. But we don't have that worry anymore, do we?
You know what, guys? I want to go through that outs list that Chris spoke about before we move on and start talking about our rivals in the Premier League. So it's quite an extensive list, so bear with me. So we've Emre Can, obviously, he went to Juventus on a free. Ajari is on loan at Rangers. Jordan Williams went to Rochdale on a free. John Flanagan went to Rangers on a free. Jan Danla was released and went to Swansea. Tony Carrera was released and went to actually nowhere. He was just released. Andrew Firth was released. Mitchell Parker was released. Adam Bogdan is up on Hibs on loan, which is fucking hilarious. Paulo Manuel Neves Alves was released. Harry Wilson is on Derby. He's gone to Derby on loan. Teo Ewioni, I fucking hate trying to pronounce that name. Every time I see that name, I just say the young lad from Nigeria. He's gone to Ghent on loan. Danny Ward will be sold to Leicester, obviously, for $12.5 million. Ryan Kent is up with Stevie G at Rangers. The young lad Alan that Christian was talking about is at Eintracht Frankfurt on loan. Ben Woodburn at Sheffield United. Herbie Kane's gone to Doncaster on loan. Then, of course, we might also have Danny Ings gone to Southampton on loan with a view to a permanent deal.
It has just been confirmed that he will go to Southampton on loan.
Is that with a view to a permanent deal?
I'm reading here Klopp's tribute to Ings. We will miss him. Jurgen Klopp has paid a heartfelt tribute to Danny Ings after it was confirmed the striker will leave Liverpool to join Southampton. The striker will initially move to St Mary's on a season-long loan before the transfer is made permanent on July 1st, 2019. It brings a 3-year spell at Anfield to an end following a switch from Burnley. Klopp admits it is with heavy heart. He granted the popular 26-year-old the opportunity to leave the Reds. It is a very strange feeling saying goodbye to Danny. The biggest emotion is how much we miss him. He's such an outstanding boy. Honestly, if you could bottle character and spirit, his would sell worldwide. He's so incredible positive and full of energy. but we won't miss his character because he's a footballer who has all the tools. What is clear is that in his time here, he had zero luck, really, certainly in my time. Before joining, I tried to watch as many games on tape as I could from the season so far, and Danny Ings stood out as someone I was really looking forward to coaching. We all know his story and the bad luck he has since then. It is why the other emotion is that of being pleased for Danny that he has such a good move, and his future is now very bright. When he's said to us he thinks this is the window, it might be the West, look elsewhere for the sake of his career and playing more regular football, it was clear early that Southampton had a great appeal to him personally. So, yeah, it's done.
So that's 18 now. We can say 18 and possibly 19 if one of the goalkeepers move on at a later date. So that's a lot of business done by the club, a lot of bodies cleared. Not so much wages freed up, to be fair, because we haven't moved on anybody major. But guys, we've spent a lot of time on Liverpool, so I want to go and talk about our rivals now. And Christian, I'll come to you first on this one. We'll go to Arsenal. So Arsenal have, like Liverpool, now released 18 players. We'll go through their lists and pick out some of the bigger ones a little bit later on. But with incomings, we have Bernd Leno from Bayer Leverkusen, Stefan Lichtsteiner from Juventus, that guy who I'm never pronouncing his name from Borussia Dortmund, Socrates, that's it, I'm not going with a second name.
That'll do.
Lucas Torreira from Sampdoria, and is it Guendouzi from Lorient, or Matteo Guendouzi, or I can't pronounce his name either. God almighty, I'm having a mare here with names, but he came in at 8 million as well.
Papastotopoulos was easier.
I'm not even having a go at that one. Socrates is good enough for me. So look, Arsenal have brought in 1, 2, 3, or 5 senior first team players there. One of them who I've never heard of, if I'm being honest, and the guy from Lorient. But how do you view their business overall, Christian?
I think they have done excellent. Arsenal will again be a threat. I'm first going to say I think Liverpool and Manchester City will battle out for the title this year. But I think Arsenal will push for top 4 in a completely different manner this year, because they brought in players that I think they have kind of missed in their team. They got 3 real winners in Torreira, Socrates and Lichtsteiner. And in Bernd Leno, they got a goalkeeper. Guendouzi is probably more little bit of a joker. We don't know how big of a impact he will have, but I think I really like Arsenal business, and they were rumored being quite close to Dembele, but those rumors were being denied today, that they weren't really going for him. But I think with Emery as a new coach, they will have everybody will be fighting for the spots, and we all also have to remember that they kept Ramsey, and they have brought in both Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang last year. Still have Özil, still have Lacazette, and now will be much more solid. And I will tell you that Lucas Torreira will be a huge hit in Premier League. So yeah, they will be much closer to top 4 this year, in my opinion.
And Chris, the only real senior players that they're after losing were Cazorla, who went to Villarreal, Mertesacker, Jack Wilshere, obviously, who went to West Ham, and then Callum Chambers went to Fulham on loan, and they sold Lucas Perez to West Ham. Look, there's lots of other movement there from Arsenal, but they're the main ones for me. How do you view the window for Arsenal, Chris?
I think very similar to ourselves. They had some areas of the team that they needed to look at, didn't they? And I'm not looking at Arsenal just from this window's point of view, and Christian touched on it there. You know, you got to look. I think you've got to drag January into this as well. Look at the business they did then as well. They look a hell of a lot stronger than when they started last season. What I would say though is the business they've done this summer, whilst all of the players sort of arrest a situation in certain positions of the team where they were struggling for, I wouldn't say real quality, because I think all of the players they had there were quality players. They just weren't consistent enough. I think the players that they brought in will be consistent enough. There's a lot of experience, especially if you look at Socrates, Leno, and Lichtsteiner. None of those signings sort of grab a hold of you and make you say, wow, do they? But maybe that's a good thing. Overall, in terms of Arsenal going into next season, yes, they're going to be stronger. They're going to be a more difficult side to beat. I think their new manager will make sure of that. They've got Europa League football next season, though. And I don't care what anybody says, that does hold a team back. Every team who has gone into any season with Europa League football from the beginning has not had a good league season. So I'm not 100% certain that they're a shoe-in for the top four. I think the side is good enough to challenge for the top four, but I think that Europa League season's gonna more or less derail any chance they've got for it, which is a shame for them. But it's one of those things, isn't it? The players that have gone out, Mertesacker, he was steady Eddie, perhaps a bit slower. He's retired. He was old, wasn't he? Cazorla, they couldn't get him on the pitch. Quality player, but they could never get him on the pitch. So he's no real great loss. Same with Jack Wilshere, again, quality player, but they couldn't get him on the pitch. And I wouldn't say anybody else that's left has weakened them at all. Very similar to our outgoings, where they haven't really lost anybody, perhaps other than Wilshere, who could impact that first team. And there is, I know Christian just mentioned, they've managed to keep hold of a couple of players. I think the difference between them and us is a couple of those players may be actively seeking to leave. So whilst they've not gone to a Premier League club, they could still go abroad. So I think it's a bit of a watch the space scenario. They could still lose a player, yeah. But overall, I think their business has been quite decent.
I've got to push on, guys, and we'll have a look at Chelsea now. A very interesting transfer window, Christian, for Chelsea, particularly with a new manager coming in. They managed to pinch Jorginho from underneath Manchester City's noses from Napoli. They brought in Rob Green on a free, obviously, for cover. They brought in Mario Kovacic on loan as part of the Thibaut Courtois deal. Well, they may say it was separate, but it was pretty much part of it. And then, obviously, they brought in Kepa from Athletic Bilbao for £71.6 million just to help out Liverpool and take all the pressure off Alisson Becker being the world's most expensive goalkeeper.
It's also being rumored that Bakayoko is going to AC Milan, so that deal will be done after today, because it's possible until the last of August, right?
Didn't really work out for him at Chelsea, did it?
No, but I'm saying, and this has gone under the noses of a lot of people, actually. Sarri, the new manager, he builds his teams around a pressing midfield, and he creates that movement like he did in Napoli. And now he will have a midfield with Kovacevic, Jorginho, and Kanté, which is undoubtedly the best one in the Premier League, those three together, which means Chelsea's midfield, and with Hazard still staying, as it seems, and William, they actually will be a very good team. The only thing that can't be at fault for them now is that if this keeper fails to deliver, if he will deliver, Chelsea will be a really strong team next season.
I completely disagree around the midfield, by the way. There's 0 goals coming from that midfield.
I'm thinking the same. I find that really underwhelming. Jorginho he's a holding player. They've already got the best holding midfielder in the world, in most people's opinion, which is obviously Kanté. So he's not adding anything other than perhaps maybe a little bit more quality in terms of on the ball and possession. He is a good player, don't get me wrong, and I'd have been happy if we'd signed him. Although I'm happy with the players who we've signed. And I'm not saying that because he went to Chelsea. Obviously, he hadn't signed for Chelsea at the time, and I was over the moon with who we signed. I don't think he was a player they really needed, to be honest with you. Kepa, good goalkeeper. He is. Is he worth what they've paid? Probably not. I would probably say Alisson wasn't worth what we paid, but Does he improve them? Well, they've let Courtois go. He's not better than Courtois, so they're not stronger there. Kovacic. Real Madrid are not loaning out Kovacic because for any other reason than they wanted Courtois. Who's our most expendable player that we can loan out as a sweetener so we can get Courtois in? I'll just let him have Kovacic. So he can't be that special. And Robert Green, just a seasoned goalkeeper who can come in and do them a job if they need. So there's nothing there that shouts to me, that they've improved massively. Nothing at all. They've perhaps improved marginally.
Chris, what I would say there, by the way, with improvement is the fans will see an improvement in the style of play. That's one thing I'll say they'll definitely get under Sarri, is they'll see a much more exciting style of play.
I think they will. I mean, there were times when they did turn it on and they did look good. I think largely a lot of what we saw from Chelsea was players not playing for the manager. Well, people automatically think they're going to love this new manager and they're all going to play for him. They all want to be at the club. Hazard literally wants to leave. He actually wants to go to Real Madrid. That's not dead in the water yet. That could happen. There's no... just any other club could come in for him. Maybe with Willian as well. We don't know, do we? There are players there that still wanted to leave. They've got a sweat on now until all of the other windows close, because that could possibly happen. Keeping them doesn't strengthen them; it just keeps them in the same position, doesn't it? I can't see a lot from Chelsea. They finished outside top four again. They've got the same problem as Arsenal, haven't they? I don't think they've improved that well that they can handle a season in Europa League football, as well as trying to shoehorn themselves back into that top four. And I'm not saying that because don't get me wrong, they're very good sides, both of them. Very, very good sides full of quality players. But so are the other sides in that top six. And they were better last season. And I know we're going to come on to Spurs at some point, and people will say that the fact that they've done no business means they haven't strengthened.
We really do have to jump through the teams here, guys. So
yeah, Spurs or something else. So I'm looking at it and think I think they're going to struggle for the top four again.
Christian, do you see Chelsea as being top four contenders? Or, well, they are contenders, let's be honest. Do you see them making the top four this season?
Well, if Kovacevic will play like he did in Inter, I as usual, I and Chris don't agree. These three players, with Sarri as a manager, will be one of the world's best midfields. Kovacevic can again go back to the more offensive part, like he did in Inter, and with Jorginho and Cote running, it will be a crazy team trying to get through there. And again, if Hazard keeps having the form he's having, he's never been that kind of person like Coutinho is, trying to force his way out. He's loved and adored by the fans, and he's a professional. Nothing in his history has contradicted that. If Real Madrid will come up with like £200 million or something like that, okay, then perhaps a deal will be made. Otherwise, Chelsea will not sell, and he will perform a great season. That's the professional he is. William has coming out said that after having talks with Sarri, he's very happy to stay and keep playing for Chelsea. So I really see them as a contender if the new goalkeeper delivers, because they will. If he will become a talk that he's overrated, he will concede some early goals, then it will create this disharmony. But with Sarri, I mean, Jorginho moved with Sarri for a reason. He's a very popular person to be working with. Chelsea will be up there for sure.
We got to move over now, Chris, to the self-proclaimed champions of the transfer window market, which of course is the blue shite down the road, Everton Football Club. They're after bringing in Yerry Mina, Andre Gomes on loan from Barcelona, Richarlison for Sky are saying £40 million, but they can fuck right off. It's £50 million. Lucas Digne from Barcelona for £18 million, the guy with the "I'll never walk alone" tattoo across his chest. and Bernard from Shakhtar Donetsk on a free. And it looks like they may also get Kurt Zouma on loan from Chelsea. That paperwork has been submitted as we record.
I was going to say, I think loans can still go through anyway, can't they? So, Zouma is not a bad player, but he didn't manage to keep Stoke up, did he?
Neither did Shaqiri, but don't say that to Charlie Adam. He'll have a fucking meltdown.
I know. Didn't they concede the most goals in the Premiership last season? I think Richarlison. He's got a bit of quality about him, but he doesn't really do the numbers. I think they've massively overrated that signing. Lucas Digne, I don't think he really sets. He's not an exciting signing. Virginia from Arsenal. Again, don't really know much about him. He's not somebody who's going to grab any headlines. Bernard seemed to be highly rated a couple of years ago as a youngster. I don't particularly. I think that one. Do you know before when I said about signing players who were available? Bernard and Mina look that way to me. They're just players who are available.
They tried to get Mina to every club in England by the sounds of it at one stage or another. Yeah, Barcelona just wanted to free up that non-EU spot.
What you've got to bear in mind, he was offered to Manchester United, and we know Jose Mourinho, he loves a good centre-half. And he had every chance of signing this player, and he didn't. And then that tells a story. Gomez is the one for me, although he's only on loan. He's not going to be sweating blood for the shirt. I think we've seen a lot of loan signings come into the Premiership. Young players with big reputations who have come into the Premiership and not really done an awful lot, but there's no doubt he has got some quality.
Chris, let's not forget that both those players, Yerry Mina and Andre Gomes, were included in the deal for Paul Pogba that was offered to Manchester United as well.
Yeah. Again, I mean, Barcelona are on another planet to Everton. So, any player that Barcelona want to get rid of because they're only on the fringes of the squad, or perhaps in some cases better than what Everton have got. And you have to understand with Everton is their starting position this window is quite low. Other than a couple of signings that they made, I think Walcott, if he stays fit, he was a good signing, for example. But they were at such a low point going into the window that they really needed to pull some rabbits out of some hats, and I don't think they've done it. I think the fee for Richarlison makes that signing look better than it is because it's a big fee, looks like a big signing. I don't think it is. And I think bringing players in from Barcelona just because they've come from Barcelona doesn't make them good players. We've had players in from Real Madrid who flopped massively when we brought them in as part of other deals and things, and it doesn't mean anything. The fact of the matter is they didn't hold down a starting place at Barcelona because they weren't good enough. So nothing there suggests to me that they've won the window, never mind going to win anything next season. I think they've had a couple of players leave who were, however, like Rooney, for example, we all see him as past it. He was still one of their better players last season. Klaassen,
Ashley Williams, Kevin Morales.
Ashley Williams, yeah, whilst not great, he was solid, wasn't he? Morales didn't start many games, but when he came on, he could do something. He knew the Premier League. They've not, but I think a lot of these players, it's either age or injury records of seen them not really get many games, like Funes Mori, for example. But have they massively strengthened on top of where they were last season? I think they've just added numbers. I think that's all they've done.
I think this might be a repeat of last year.
I think they've got a slightly better manager, although I don't think we know that. I think the jury's still out on that. He's not exactly got a track record of winning anything or doing anything really special. Over a number of years with any club. I think they're just clinging to the hope that by splashing a lot of money and signing a lot of players that it's going to work. But there's an awful lot of players in and out over the last 3 windows. All of those players that they've got in now, they've got to gel, got to adapt to a new system. And again, I think they may do marginally better than last season. They did kind of improve under Sam Allardyce a little bit. But I think Sam Allardyce himself, I think he said on a radio interview or something today that, they needed a new left back. He pretty much says they really, really need a new left back, and they've not done it. And there's other things.
Left back?
No, I'm on about previous to the season. They really need a new left back. That's it. No, sorry, yeah. And I think that's all they've done. I think that's all they've added. Everywhere else, it's just numbers, isn't it? Everywhere else, it's just added numbers, because I think they've signed a lot of players in those positions over the last couple of seasons. It was just left back. I think that's the only place they've perhaps truly strengthened, and I don't really know how good he is. So,
Christian, yeah, I want to push on, but Christian, I heard something earlier on that made me really, really chuckle. A couple of things, actually. So Sky Sports were interviewing a couple of Everton fans who were at the studio, and they were talking about the business, and obviously the Everton fans were really happy with the business their club was doing, but the height of their ambition was to be able to challenge us in a game on the field, was what one of the fans was saying. And secondly, somebody on Twitter, an Everton fan, actually said that Bernard is going to be infinitely better than Coutinho.
Well, I don't know if he's going to be better than Coutinho, but he sure as hell is going to be good. It's a real quality player. Again, I don't agree with Chris. I think Everton has done a really excellent window. They will massively improve, and I think they have been really lucky, actually, to get both Yerry Mina and Andre Gomez to Everton. I couldn't believe that they succeeded in those signings, actually. Andre Gomez came out a while ago and said that he had huge psychological problems about coping with pressure at Barcelona. And he got the standing ovation coming back to the field, but from the supporters, just to show them how much they like him as a player. Barcelona has made this decision that to get Andre Gomez, because they still believe a lot in him, he needs to get away from the pressures at Barcelona and go back to being that quality football player that he is. And then Everton ends up getting him as well. I think they have been massively lucky this window that so many things have gone right for them. And they will be a lot better. Will they be top 6? No, I don't think so. But they will be a lot better than last year.
Just looking at Bernard. Hang on, Chris. Hang on.
Sorry.
Chris, just looking at Bernard or Bernard, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And I'll ask this to both of you guys. Why was a player like that was clearly available and on a free not picked up by one of the big clubs?
This is my point on all of them. These are players that were offered around. And each of them players would have had a preference to play for a side maybe in the Champions League or at least the Europa League, or playing under a certain manager, playing a certain type of football. Specifically, looking at the loan deal for Andre Gomez, perhaps we're going to a club where the style of football mirrors the style of football they play. There's a reason why. And it's not that I'm not saying the poor players, but if we look at those three players, if those are the three players who make the biggest difference to Everton, Bernard, Mina, and Gomez, that's three players. That squad needed a lot more than three players to make a massive difference to it. So again, each individual player, is that a good signing? Yes, I'm not looking at it like I'm not saying Bernard's a bad signing or Mina's a bad signing or Gomez is a bad signing. What I'm saying is overall, as a window, I don't think they've strengthened massively, because there are a couple of players there who did a job for them last season. They've not, they've perhaps gone one step back, maybe 2 steps forward. So they've only stepped up one rung on the ladder. It's nothing major. I think some of the players there on that list are perhaps a little overrated. And Bernard, I think, again, it's players like that I don't get. The internet rates them highly, and there's a reason why he's not at a top club.
I'd be interested to see actually what Christian thinks on the Bernard thing.
Well, Bernard, and you could that could perhaps say something about his character. He shows Shakhtar Donetsk when he did, because they paid the most money. and that perhaps if he had higher ambitions of winning something, he wouldn't go for the highest salary. On the other hand, in life, most of us choose the highest salary in whatever we do for a living. When he wanted out of Shakhtar and his agents were starting to look around, that's the gamble you take as a player. When you move to a club like Shakhtar, you get out of the limelight. You will lose your spot usually in the national team, and the biggest club don't study you as much as they did before.
We did see that with Teixeira, didn't we, in fairness?
He will probably become like Shaqiri, again, coming to a better environment. He will get this restarting of his career. No other signs would go differently. He's a quality player who is on the verge of breaking into the Brazilian national team, which is saying a lot. He was a reserve for the World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. If he will get a good start at Everton and the new manager will sort out his ideas, Everton could be, because they have so much youth coming up in that club as well. So I think Everton is in a much healthier state now than with Jabba the Hutt as the manager.
No, I have to agree with you there. They're certainly in a much better state than they were before the manager came in, the current manager. Do you know what, guys? There's been a couple of weird transfers this summer, and I really am going to push on, but I just want to touch on the Max Meyer thing as well. Another player who was on a free transfer, who, you know, is a very, very good, talented young footballer, much like Bernard. I'm sure the clubs up and down Europe would have known about him, but somehow ends up at Crystal Palace. That was another strange one for me. Maybe, Christian, you could give me a bit more insight on that one, you following the Bundesliga more closely than I would.
Yeah, the thing about why he chose Crystal Palace was that they paid the highest salary out of everyone. And that probably also killed Danny Ings going to Crystal Palace, that they got Max Meyer instead. But £117,000 a week plus a signing bonus, as it said. Liverpool were not even close to think he was valuated at that kind of money. The clubs on a little lower level, to get these kind of players to their side, they have to be their top earners. So that's why some of these players chooses teams that are not perhaps in the top 5, but they could actually have a bigger salary available for them.
Guys, we've got 3 more clubs left to go through, and there's not really much point in us going into Manchester City because they brought in Riyad Mahrez. We touched on him a little bit earlier on the window. Chris had his say, so Christian, maybe if there's something you want to talk about with Riyad Mahrez or how you think it add to the City squad, by all means, work away.
Yeah, I mean, Riyad Mahrez is one thing. I think, like Chris said, he will be a squad player and he will play his fair share of games, but he will not massively improve Manchester City. I think the ones that will prove Manchester City are all the youngsters coming up the ranks. I was really impressed with them pre-season, and they, as Liverpool, look like the machinery of educating young players are doing in the same level as they do in the first team. So all these young players coming up, they look like they've been part of the first team for quite a while. So Manchester City looks like they are in a very healthy state, and they play with so much speed as well. I'm so much looking forward to the games that we are going to play against them this season. It will be games for the century. 2 of the fastest teams ever we have witnessed in the world of football will take on each other. And Liverpool will really have to do one of the seasons of the century to win the league before Manchester City. They are that good.
Yeah, it's a monstrous task in front of Liverpool. It really is, and any other team that want to wrestle that Premier League title away from Manchester City, because you know they walked it with 100 points or 101 points, whatever it was. Amazing tally, never seen before. But Chris, I'm going to push on now to two clubs that I've saved to last on purpose, and Tottenham Hotspur, Spurs, whichever way you want to call them. No transfers in. They have set a record, Chris. The first team in top flight team ever in English football to not buy a player in a summer transfer window. That is absolute lunacy, and surely has something to do with the new stadium.
I think it may have something to do with the new stadium. They did dip in the market in January as well. I think Spurs have really got a healthy squad anyway. I really do, and I think their main strength is their continuity and consistency. That's how it's been over the last sort of like 3 or 4 seasons. That is their main strength. You know, they've got a forward who guarantees them over 30 goals a season. They've got an attacking midfield player who guarantees them between 10 and 15, and then a number of players around that there who they've got another one, haven't they, in Dele Alli? I was referring to Ericsson at first. You know, and then they've got a number of other players who contribute. If they were to let's look at Bernard, for example, because we knew he was available. You know, if Spurs had have gone in for him, he would have wanted to have gone to Spurs. But where does he fit in? You know, they're a quality side. Make no bones about it. They're gonna knock up well over 80 points next season, like they do. They're going to be in that top 4. Fully expect that. Whilst yes, I do think there may be something surrounding the new stadium as to why they've not spent big. What they have done is they secured the services of a couple of the players with bigger deals, haven't they? Which I think is a good thing for them. I wouldn't count them out on the basis that they've not signed anybody. I don't think they had any real glaring weaknesses in their side, and more importantly, they've not let anyone go either. And I don't think they're going to. Doesn't look that way. So yeah, you know, everybody gets hung up on teams signing players for years and years and years and years. Well, since we started having transfer windows, teams have improved every summer, or what we say they've improved. For example, Manchester United at the top of their game for the best part of 20 years improved in inverted commas every summer. But that didn't mean their goal tallies improved. They conceded less goals and got more points, did it? Very often their best seasons came when they just tweaked the side, maybe with one player here or two. You know what I mean? Just they kept the consistency and the continuity. They got the same manager, practically the same side. The spine stayed together, and I think that's what Spurs are doing. They had no glaring weaknesses. I think, whilst it's not an amazing window, you know, every fan in the world wants their club to unveil a major signing. I don't think for 1 minute they're going to have a poor season off the back of it.
Christian, I agree a lot with what Chris says there, particularly around continuity of a squad and players getting to know each other, and they have a great manager there, Mauricio Pochettino, as well. But what I would say is, when you don't bring in a player to challenge or a player to freshen it up, some players can kind of, you know, feel a bit too at ease in their position, and that they're not being challenged, and there's nobody in there to challenge them to take that jersey off them.
Yeah, that's completely true. A little bit of new competition, a little bit of new blood in the dressing room in the start of the season. It's usually a good thing. There are many times in history how it has happened that clubs who have kept their squad for a while, not much movements, will become very, very strong together. And what I do think that the Spurs has been focusing on and spend their money on is raising salaries and signing up players like Kane, Dele Alli, Son for longer contracts, which perhaps was the correct move to do for them, because it was perhaps not losing players that was important instead of recruiting new ones. They actually kept their quality players. Spurs will be up there as well, for sure. Let's hope they will get like one of these stadium bad vibes where they can't win in the stadium kind of thing happening for them.
Now, Chris, we've left this to last. Me and Christian had a little chat earlier on, and we said, you know what, we're going to leave United to last, because I couldn't think of a better way to end the transfer window than thinking of poor old Jose Mourinho with no centre-back after getting Fred in, the lot, Lee Grant, and that's his lot, while he sees everybody around him, pretty much everybody around him, strengthening and pushing them a little bit further down. The discontent is growing amongst their fans. He couldn't get any centre-back from anywhere in the world. God love poor old Jose, Chris.
Well, he could have had Yerry Mina, but he chose not to. They've lost. Didn't Daley Blind go? I know he wasn't a great player, but he was solid enough, wasn't he? And another solid player, Michael Carrick, retired. I know he's old and he's retired and everything, but he still. There were times he came into that side last season and he was steady Eddie for them. I've seen the couple of times I've seen Delo play Porto. Didn't play very well. One of the times was against us. So he doesn't really fill me with any confidence. If I was a Man United fan, I wouldn't be looking at that signing and thinking, wow. Fred, similar to Bernard, he's just got one of them reputations, hasn't he? Albeit a slightly bigger reputation. So he might come in and do some bits for them, but was he needed? Not too sure. And Lee Grant, just a backup keeper. Mourinho has got himself in a position now where in the modern game, I know he's always been a modern manager, but more and more so now, year on year, this sort of idea that players talk to each other, they're all talking on social media, and that, everything gets released the second it's said or the second it happens. He's now created this monster out of himself that he's not a player's player, and players are different animals now. I don't think you can be the tough taskmaster who throws players under the bus and get away with it all the time. And further to that, the style of football that Manchester United have played under him, and latterly, and obviously previous to that when he was at Chelsea. Players are looking at that and then looking down the M62 at the way Liverpool are playing, or across a few miles away at the way Man City are playing, and thinking, I want to play in that style of football. I want to play in that team or a team like that, and they've been turned down by a lot of players, haven't they? But specifically over the last couple of days, a lot of players have knocked them back, and it's not down to Manchester United. They've not massively fallen off that pitch that they were on. They're still there. They finished second in the league last season. They won a couple of trophies the season before. So they're still in and around things. It's pretty much... And they'll still pay the wages as well. Let's just say that. Clearly, they will still pay the big money. It's just down to the manager. He's got nobody to blame but himself for the lack of players coming in.
So say that again, please, Chris. Say that again. I like hearing that. Say it again. Who's it down to?
Mourinho. He's got nobody to blame but himself.
Look at the list of players who turned him down. Kovacic said they didn't want to come there. Godin, they stitched him up like a kipper. Diego Godin and his representative stitched United up brilliantly. Who else turned him down? There was more players turned him down this summer, wasn't there?
Jerome Boateng called Mourinho personally to tell him that he turned them down. And the conversation, what I heard was something like this. Hi, Jose, it's Jerome. Fuck off.
Oh, God. We'd all love to have made that call at one stage or another, Christian.
He's just become like a meme of himself, hasn't he, now? And where does he go after this? Because they've not strengthened. They're going to be a good side next year. They'll be a solid, difficult side, hard to beat. They're going to be up in that top four. I've got no doubt about that. But this is, if you're a Manchester United fan, what's your expectation going into any season?
It's got to be to challenge for the league. That's what you want to do.
It's to win. It's to win the league. Yeah, not to challenge, to win. You know, Man City's expectation now was what Manchester United fans should be, and it's not anymore. So if they're not going to win and they are going to challenge, then they need the fillip of bringing in a major signing, which I don't think they've done. And they also need to play a certain brand of football throughout that season, which they are not going to do. At some point, Mourinho's going to lose that job. And when he does, where does he go? What happens from there on?
I know that's another part,
obviously, but it's...
I'd say the Portugal job is his next job.
It probably is, isn't it? But, you know, I'm thinking like top clubs coming in for you, because, you know, top clubs don't let a good manager go into an international job. They pay the big money, don't they, to get the big manager in. But, you know, to come out of any window, for Manchester United to come out of any window and not have this shiny, I've won the transfer window trophy. And they haven't done it for a while now. And this was, you know, they finished second last season. They should be thinking, okay, right, we were second. We can go and win the title next season. We can close that gap. They haven't done. Everybody's looking at us for that now.
You know what, Chris?
You know, that's got to be a sickener.
It's
got to be an absolute sickener for them, which is great. You know, I'm loving that.
Christian, I want to come to you on this because I have a theory and I want to see what you think about this one. We've seen Jose Mourinho go to Inter Milan and get every drop out of aging players there and pay big wages. He did similar at Real Madrid. I think that Ed Woodward is looking at the type of business that Jose Mourinho wants to do at Manchester United and is worrying about what's going to be there after Jose leaves.
Yeah, for sure. But I have a conspiracy theory looking at Inter Milan's window, which has been really, really good. That's Jose Mourinho's next destination. And talks are already in progress for him to go back because he's a huge hero at Inter Milan.
That's really interesting.
Perhaps he already has a finger in the business being conducted there, because they are spending so much money. And well, I wouldn't be surprised if that's his next destination, and he might even go there next season. It's kind of like when
we were looking to get Modric in as well, weren't they?
Yeah. There are loads of players coming into Milan, and yeah, I have that theory. Coming down to Manchester United, which is funny because my dad is a huge Manchester United fan. God rest his soul. But he watched the game with I don't know which. They played Bayern Munich, I think, and were completely slaughtered on the pitch. It didn't become more than like 1-0 to Bayern Munich. But I asked Dad, like, so how do you think about your transfer window? Well, he said, they played with those guys, Fred and Dalot. I didn't see them the whole game. So he hates Mourinho at the moment. He's so annoyed with how he destroys the club, and he just wants him to go. And I really want Mourinho to stay for as long as it's humanly possible, because they have what I've understood Zidane as the next one in line to get the job. So I really want them to keep Mourinho for as long as humanly possible.
Do you know what, guys? I couldn't think of a better way to end this transfer window than sitting here with the thoughts of Mourinho getting the sack from somewhere. That's absolutely perfect. That'll do me just fine. It's been a really, really strange window, I have to say. The World Cup has altered the way clubs have gone about business. Obviously, it would have been shortened in the Premier League. Liverpool have gone about their business really well. I'm sure you guys that are listening are very happy with what Liverpool have done. We look ahead to the January window. We'll be back with Transfer Talk podcasts in and around that. We'll keep obviously putting out the podcast here on Anfield Agenda. We'll be back on Sunday with Cop Council with myself, Daz, Chris, and God knows whoever else we can get on board for that one. I've got to leave it there tonight, guys, but a massive thank you to Christian and to Chris for joining me. I hope you guys are happy with Liverpool's business, and we'll talk to you very soon. Take care.